Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be all about Xobeauty. If you don't already know, Xobeauty is a brand that sells makeup brushes and false lashes mainly, and it's run by Xobeauty here on YouTube. And you probably know if you've watched many of my videos that I don't wear false lashes, but I do have a lot of brushes from Xobeauty, so I thought that today I would share with you my top 10. Now there is actually one item that's not a brush, so we're gonna call it my top 10 makeup applicators from Xobeauty. So I have them here ready to share with you. I have 5 face brushes or applicators and then 5 eye brushes as well. So let's get started with the one item that is not a brush. So this is the sponge that Xobeauty does. This is called the Flawless Finish Sponge. I bought this in a pack of 2, but you can also get them as singles. I do have to admit, I have never tried a beauty blender, so I don't know how this holds up to a beauty blender. In fact, this is the only sponge makeup applicator that I have actually tried, but for what it's worth, I think that it's really great. My foundation applies really easily. It blends very quickly, a lot quicker than I actually thought it would be to use a sponge. It never looks cakey when I apply it with a sponge, and it doesn't seem to lower the coverage either. It does for my concealer, but not for my foundation. So even though this is one of my more recent purchases from Xobeauty, it is definitely one of my top picks. I have been using this on an everyday basis recently. Next, let's talk about another foundation applicator. This is another one that I've only had for a couple of months. I've had it for the same amount of time that I've had the sponge. This is the flat face brush. This one is Xobeauty's favorite and has been for a few years now. Every time you see her applying her foundation, this is generally what she's using. Now, excuse the fact that this is dirty because I did use it to apply my foundation today. The reason that I love this brush so much is because my foundation has never blended in faster than when I use this brush. It literally takes me about 15 seconds to buff it all in, and there's no streaks, there's no cakiness. I think it's because it covers such a large surface, and because it is flat, it does buff it really evenly. So I'm glad I went on Shannon's recommendation for this brush. Again, another one that I would definitely recommend. Next is the bronzer brush. So it's like an angled shape, but then it's like pinched so that it's thin along this way. This one I actually use for contour. I will also use it for bronzer, but my favorite way to use this is for contour because you can just pick up product on the side of the brush and then it applies it in a really nice line, and then you turn it on its side to kind of blend it in. And this is the perfect brush for applying the contour and blending it out all in one go because of the shape and how fluffy and soft it is. However, I have also seen Shannon use this to set her under eye concealer, and it's the perfect shape for that as well. And you can also use this for other face powders, blush and highlighter. It would be great for those too. Next we have the tapered fiber brush. This one is so super soft, and it also has a little bit of that pinch shape, so it's not quite in a circle. This one has quite sparse hair, so it's not a very dense brush. But the reason for that, which I've heard Shannon say in some of her videos, is so that you can use this with very pigmented products that you're scared of going overboard with. So if you use this with a super pigmented blush, then it just shears it out a little bit and makes it a lot easier to apply. The way that I use this mostly is actually for my bronzer, because I don't like to go too overboard with my bronzer, so I'm able to just kind of swirl this all around the bronzer and not worry about it picking up too much product. And then I can just sweep it all over my face and it just doesn't apply too much. This is also a really good brush for highlighting. If you have quite an intense highlight and you want to use it during the day in a little bit more of a wearable way, this would be the brush to use for that. It's just another really versatile brush. And the last face brush that I have to talk about is this one here. This is the Shimmer Tulip brush. As you can see, it's got like a tulip shape to it. Again, there are a couple of different ways you can use this brush. My favorite way to use this is with a loose powder to set my under eye concealer. It picks up the perfect amount of loose powder, and then it's the perfect shape to just apply under the eyes. However, as the name Shimmer implies, you can also use this for your highlight. I believe that's what it's designed for. It does a really great job at that as well. So now we are on to my top 5 eye brushes from Xobeauty. I'm going to start with the one that I use the most, which is this one here. This is the Fluffy Blender brush. I'm not sure if you can see that against the white wall. This is what it looks like. As you can see, It's really fluffy. It's quite big, so it's able to blend out eyeshadow really, really well and really quickly. This is the type of brush that I was missing from my collection for the longest time. I had these big eyeshadow brushes, but they weren't fluffy enough to actually blend properly. This one is really, really good. Basically, every time I do my eyeshadow, I will first use this to apply my transition color. So because I want that to kind of go all over my crease area, I'll just use this as a big fluffy brush to put that everywhere. And then after I've applied my lid shade and a darker crease color, I'll go back in with this brush to blend everything together, especially the crease color. If it's quite dark and you don't want it to have a harsh line, this is the perfect brush for blending that out. Another awesome brush for blending eyeshadow out is this one here. This is the flat top eyeshadow brush. It does all the same things as the last one, maybe not quite as well because it's not quite so fluffy, but like if that one is not quite dry from being washed, then I will use this one instead. This is like my second go-to option because it still does a really great job. It just takes maybe a little bit longer. The other way that you can use this brush is to blend out concealer because it is quite small, but it's still quite dense. So it's very good at like buffing the concealer out. This here is the tapered crease brush. Again, it's another white brush, so I'm not sure how well you can see that. Hopefully you can see it's basically like a fluffy pencil brush. It's not very fluffy at all, but it's not quite as thin as a regular pencil brush. So it's kind of, I like to describe it as a fluffy pencil brush because that's what it looks like to me. Anyway, this is the brush that I like to use to apply a darker color into my crease or into my outer V because it is a very precise brush. It's very small. It picks up as much or as little color as you want it to. It applies it exactly where you want. You have so much control with this brush. And you can also use this brush to apply shadow underneath your lower lash line. And like I said, once I've applied a darker color, I'll go in with one of the blending brushes to blend it out, but this is the brush that I use to apply the color in the first place. This brush here is the angled eyeshadow brush. This is the one that I use to apply the lid shade. So because it is angled, I'm able to get all the way into the corner and it just ends up being a really good shape to get everywhere around your eye. To be honest, I prefer this to like a flat shading brush because I find that this one's a little bit softer, therefore it kind of starts the blending process for you. If I use this, it will like start to blend my lid shade into my transition shade, and you don't really get that with a flat shader brush because they're so stiff, they don't do any blending at all. It's all up to personal preference. I mean, with this one you kind of lose a little bit of the pigment because it's starting to blend, but you'd get that when you started blending with a blender brush anyway, so all you have to do is just add a little bit more color on. Again, you can also use this one to blend out your concealer. You could use this for highlighting your inner corner or your brow bone. I just like to use it for my lid shade, but there are a lot of ways that you could use this one. And the very last brush that I'm going to talk about today is this one here. This is the tapered eye brush. This is the one that I like to use to highlight my inner corner and my brow bone because it's tapered and it's the perfect shape and size for it. It is quite a dense brush. It holds its shape really well, yet it's still very, very soft to the touch. This is probably not the best multitasking brush out of the ones that I'm showing you today. It only has a couple of uses, but I still think it's really, really great for what it does. So those are my top 10 picks from Xobeauty. Let me know in the comments down below if you have shopped there before or if you're planning to, and if you have shopped there before, what are some of your top picks, because I'm always looking to get some more. Obviously nothing that I've shown you today is limited edition because there'd be no point in showing you that because you wouldn't necessarily be able to get your hands on it for much longer. So everything I've shown you today is part of the standard range. It should be available. If it's not, it'll always be coming back into stock. One more thing that I want to mention before I go is that Shannon is always improving the quality of her brushes. I had a couple from her old line that were not that great. They shed a lot and the bristles kind of went all at weird angles, but these new ones, these are the ones that were made in Italy, the quality is insanely better. So if you tried her brushes a few years ago and you were not impressed, I would recommend trying them again because they have improved out of sight. So that is it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give it a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you aren't already. I post new videos every Monday and Thursday, and I will see you next time. Bye!